Welcome back to another episode of the Geek Centurions. It's me, your boy Eli, and
It's
my
your,
good buddy.
it's your boy Kelvin.
You were too ready there. You're excited, buddy.
Yeah,
All right. So we got another anime to talk about because it's been a while,
yeah.
and especially since in your current time, if you're in Houston, we might get hit with a storm.
There's a storm coming.
Oh boy, we don't want that. But
Mm,
thankfully, the good thing is that we can stay home more and watch anime more. Just not like we've been stuck at home for like the past few couple months.
right?
hmm But let's start off with another anime. This time it's me recommending Kelvin an anime, and since Kelvin enjoyed so much of Gundam: The Origin, I thought, you know what? Let's continue that before we go into a different anime, because I'm not going to show Kelvin the entire Gundam series all in one row, because that would be too much for the man. So, you good, Kelvin?
No, no, yeah. I'm just readjusting here.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, like I was saying, I'm not gonna show him the whole Gundam series because then that's too much for one man. We're gonna take our time
Yeah.
with it. So right now we're gonna go with the original series, the original 1979 series, Mobile Suit Gundam. So that's the OG one, the first one to come out, first Gundam 0079, the many names that it's got, the original series. Now, I will say I did try to convince Kelvin, or more like let him decide whether we watch the original series, all 43 episodes, or the movie compilation, which cuts down a couple of stuff. And Kelvin decided to go with the series. Why so, Kelvin? And I never got to ask you that.
Uh, I don't know. Just because I feel like with the series, I feel like between a series and a movie of a of a genre or franchise, I feel like with a series, personally for me, I'm able to understand a little bit more in depth of the story rather
Mm-hmm.
than the movie because I feel like with movie wise of a particular series or franchise, it kind of just squeezes everything into one go, and there may be some like crucial
Mm-hmm.
details like left out that are
Mm-hmm.
explained in the series itself. So hence why I actually rather prefer series over like movies
So,
of some genres.
so
Yeah.
ironically, a lot of people. This has been I'll say this from a perspective of from a fan, from like the community of fan. Um, it's an argument to whether to go with which either or.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it's not like don't watch that because it just compiles everything together. It's like no, the movie actually does a better edit of the show
Mm-hmm.
than the show itself.
Yeah.
So it's like you're going because like nowadays whenever you see like these compilation films, it's more of like oh they just squeeze everything in and they cut and it just feels very off paced. But no, in the movies it actually feels very well paced.
Mm-hmm.
It cuts out stuff that wasn't really needed, and we can go into that more later on. But essentially, that's kind of why I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
because in reality, both versions are fine.
Mm-hmm.
They're still good. Actually, some people prefer the movies over the show.
Okay, I see.
Actually, my brother, that's how my brother got into the original series. He watched the movies first,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, I can't watch it anywhere else
Mm-hmm.
now because the show can be a little slow, and
Yeah.
and I feel like you've seen that already
Mm-hmm.
after watching only the first three episodes. Now, Kelvin, let's talk about your quick. Give me your quick thoughts on the first three episodes, and we'll see where we can go. You are allowed to say a little bit of light spoilers. This has been a show that's been out since '79, but
Yeah.
at the same time, not everyone's seen shows this old.
Mm-hmm. I will say that going into it when you told me, oh, everything, going or before going into it, you told me that everything that I knew about Origin kind of tossed out of the window, but not all of it. Just
Yeah,
toss,
I will
toss,
say I did
toss.
exaggerate a bit there. I
You
did
did you,
exaggerate.
you did
That's on
exaggerate. It's
me.
like, okay, whenever Eli first showed me like or like Gundam Origin, I'm like, okay, cool. This is something that I would continue. And then he said, oh, so everything you saw about Origin kind of tossed like probably about maybe 50 or 60% of it out the window just because it's not what it is, and then just retain whatever's left of it and just carry that with you going into like
hmm
the original like Gundam series. I'm like, Okay. And then which I did. I had the mindset going in, and I'm like, okay, I saw recognizable characters like Char Aznable, Artesia,
Sayla.
Amuro, and Sayla, what was it? Amuro, Dolzol, like some I saw some familiar faces, and then also like some new characters that I did not see in the origin series. So I was
Or
like,
didn't
okay,
remember well.
or I didn't remember
Because they
well.
do
So
look a little weird because of the old animation.
the 70s style animation in anime is very very different, and like the only way I'm able to like the only old style animation that I remember just like growing up as a kid for me was like late 90s early 2000s, and that was with Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, and Detective Conan. That's about it.
Yeah.
That's as far back as like old style animation. And the cheesy this is what you mentioned before, is like the weird like the weird animation transitions that happens, that from the eyes of like people who dig the animations, or for people who pay attention to the animations, they would only notice that I may not notice to the naked eye, but you was like saying, oh, I don't like this change, or like, I don't like this
Kelvin, I'm gonna say this
animation.
right now. As if you choose to so go along, they become more apparent.
Oh, nice.
Like, like it's become a meme within the community.
Oh, I
Yeah.
I would figure. I would figure.
Hmm.
So going into the first, 3 episodes, essentially the same storyline. It's takes place to the whole 0079. It's the Federation versus the Zeons. Um, and this whole like battle, this whole like war going on between both factions. Is it now? I wanted to ask though, Eli, like compared to like Origins and the original series, is it also a you know in the span of a year long war? Like, is
It
the
is
war
called
also
the 1 Year War.
the one? Okay, it's still called
So
that
it takes place. All this, all the stuff all the whole war is takes place within a year.
within
So
span of a year. Okay,
yeah. So and also think about that opening monologue that we've that we as humanity have sent into space with colonies, and in roughly less than a year, we've already received like 50. Each both sides already lost 50% of their population.
yeah, okay,
So that kind of already tells you that sets you in the mindset like this is a really fucked up war.
yeah, mm-hmm.
That we're like you're already having to resort to enlisting. I feel like we can talk about this more as we go on.
Yeah,
But at the point in this war, they start enlisting children.
yeah. I saw that. I'm like, okay, cool. So, child recruitments into war, recruiting
Hmm.
kids in the war. Okay, that doesn't sound familiar enough in other actual countries in the world where they actually enlist kids
Hmm.
into fighting
And
war.
not like not like 18, 19. The youngest one is like 15.
Yeah.
These are like just straight teenagers.
I don't know what it is for me, Eli, but it's just like if you're under the age of 18 and you're already getting enlisted in a war, you're considered a child. Like,
Hmm.
I don't care what it is. Or I don't like
You're
I don't
not
care what it
mentally
is.
ready for it.
Yeah, I don't care how it is, or I don't like, the argument, whatever the argument be, but like if you
Hmm.
are under the age of 18 and you're being
Like,
enlisted,
listen,
or
there's a
you're
reason why there's an age of enlistment for the
yeah.
U.S. military,
Uh-huh.
and I can't say for any other countries. That
Mhm.
I think I know is it's also 18 in Korea, but that's everybody has to go in there.
Uh, it's 18 in Korea, and also it's mandated by Korea, by state law. Essentially state law
To be
that you
fair,
have
Kelvin, their war is still going on. They just at a stalemate. Like
stalemate
we're
right
not
now.
gonna do
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
We're just gonna do
yeah,
our own thing.
yeah.
And if
For them,
someone fucks
it's
up, Kelvin, please don't step on that line. We're all going no, please no.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but
For
no,
them,
as
yeah, I know for them it's like I think it's a 2 year. It's in the nation's law,
it's at
it's
least
a
a 2 year
2 year,
enlistment.
2 year mandatory
Mhm.
enlistment. Yeah, which is
Yeah,
yeah, which is funny because like a lot of like it's funny that you mentioned that because like a lot of like the famous like K-pop stars, they had to actually take a break from the tour because they never completed their 2 year mandatory
hmm.
enlistment. So they took a break from tour, did their enlistment, and then okay, they're like back to normal again. But sometimes it's like it can never be
And I
the same.
love that we're connecting this sort of really this sort of tragedy in this war to a real life example,
Mm-hmm.
because like
Yeah.
these are still kids.
Mm-hmm.
These are
I saw
people
like I saw
who have
yeah.
not used to the idea of war.
Yeah. Especially I know especially for Amuro whenever he first gets in the mobile suit and like
Yeah,
he goes out in space for the first
in
time.
the
Fight
titular Gundam.
Yeah, and then he fights with Char and his Zaku, the Red Comet,
Mhm.
and like
It's
his
called
reaction.
he's called the Red Comet. The
He's called the
Zaku's
Red
called the
Comet,
Zaku.
and
The Zaku is just called the Zaku.
okay.
They call him the Red Comet.
Char is the Red Comet. Okay,
Yeah,
but
they
yeah,
call him
but
the. It's like it's the Red Baron situation. Like
okay, yeah,
oh,
I
he's the
gotcha.
Red Baron because he's clearly in a red airship or whatever.
Yeah,
So he always wears a red mobile suit. So it's like it's the Red Comet. He
yeah.
flies again. Damn you, Red Comet. That kind of shit.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I just realized. Okay,
Yeah.
Char is there a particular name for his mobile suit or it's just a mobile suit?
It's the Zaku. It's specifically Zaku 2.
No, not Char's.
Amuro?
Armos. Yeah, Armos. Is this just the
It
mobile
is
suit?
just the Gundam.
Okay, so in his, I just realized. So it's funny that you mentioned the Red Baron because, like, when you mentioned like, "Damn you, Red Baron," it was like, Char. Since Char is basically Red Baron,
Yeah.
Armo is Snoopy as the.
Oh well, the Red
he,
Baron is an
he,
actual. The Red Baron's an actual, an actual person
oh no, I
in real
know,
life.
but then in like
I
in the
do. That is a
in
funny
the
connection. I'll give you
in
that.
the peanuts
Yeah.
reference, because like Snoopy
Yeah.
is like a World War I pilot, so Armo is Snoopy in his Gundam, and Char is the Red Baron.
Boy, as we go along, that joke's gonna be a lot more funnier. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and then
I'll
like,
tell you that. That joke's gonna be a
yeah,
lot more funnier.
I
A little
just made the
fucked up,
connection.
but it's gonna be a lot more
I
funnier.
mean, it makes sense because like whenever you made that reference, it's like the whole "damn you, Red Baron," and then Armos goes
Yeah.
"damn you, Red Comet."
Well, yeah. We just call him Char for the most part. It's more
Well,
like
yeah,
that's a
but
pseudonym.
but going back to Char's perspective though, like yeah, it's Char is also a kid. He's a teenager, but he's a kid
Oh no! At
fighting.
this point, he is at least in his early 20s, or like closing into 20.
Wait for what Armo?
Char. Yeah, Char.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm speaking in terms of Armo.
Yeah, you said Char though.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
For Armo, yeah.
yeah.
So for Armo,
He's 15 at
yeah,
this
is
point.
in Armo's case, like like you mentioned earlier, these are like kids. Yeah, yes, they're teenagers, but they're I don't know. Anyone that's under 18 considered a kid to me. Um, Armo is like again, like you said, is part of the many groups of kids that are involved in war and now experiencing what war is for the first time. And he even says it himself as he is fighting Char for the first time, as he was fighting Char for the first time in space. Oh, this is what war is. This is what war looks like. And that self realization, like, oh, it's not as it's way more intense than it's way more
Hmm.
intense. It's way more dramatic
There's
than
there's a
people
moment
people
where
say
he
it
had
out
a
to be.
chance
Yeah.
to shoot him down,
Uh
but he never did because you can see it. He's trembling.
yeah.
It's the idea of killing someone.
Mm-hmm.
Like he like granted he's already like at least maybe killed one or two people,
Yeah.
but he even says it himself that he just thinks of them as just the machine. He doesn't think of the person inside the machine,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is kind of fucked up.
Yeah. It's like I'm still gonna kill you. Like I know you may have a soul, but I'm still gonna kill you anyways. It's
Yeah,
like
listen, at this point I have to
that.
survive. Yeah,
It's
but the
like
fact that he acknowledges it is like
it's yeah. It's also the survive. I feel like it's also this whole mindset of like survival of the fittest. It's either killed or kill or be killed kind
yeah,
of
kill
deal.
or be killed.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I feel like I feel like the whole survival of the fittest mindset is that theme is very
Hmm.
apparent in this show is
Yeah.
yeah is very apparent. Hmm.
And going back to the whole child soldier stuff, they get drafted quick.
Yeah, it's not just like they don't even go through training. It's just you're in. Okay, you're
Everyone's reading
here.
a
You're
manual how to
there.
pilot their machines.
That's also a very common theme as well. A lot of the fast super fast, like manual flipping.
Yeah,
Like you mentioned, a lot of the scenes is like they flip through a lot of manuals. It's like,
which
oh,
is
like,
which like now looking at it because we're so used to the
hmm,
idea, specifically in most animes now,
yeah,
that they quickly adapt to piloting their mech or whatever.
hmm,
Like, okay, this clearly goes boom, makes the thing go boom. This clearly does this and that. This is how you
yeah,
move it. Okay, never. And I can go into this more, and I'll save it for a little bit later.
hmm,
But this is one of the first times where we start seeing actual thought and like reasoning as to why it takes a while for these kids to get used to the machine. And it makes sense that they will start reading the manuals because again they got drafted quick.
yeah,
It's more like they're all escaping into the ship. We're low on men. You kid who looked 15-year-old kid who's only 5'2", get a gun and start shooting.
hmm,
And that's how we start off. And
yeah,
now he's on him. Now he's in riding a mech, and he's like, give me a second. I gotta know which is which is already sets everything sort of starkly different from what most animes we're kind of used to nowadays, specifically with the
yeah.
mech.
Hmm. What's even more like? I think what was even a little bit more disturbing, but somewhat funny at the same time, is like when, like as you said, these are kids involved in war, right? This is one particular scene where there's these tiny little kids who aren't even teenagers. They're like, yeah, war, let's go
They're
to war.
babies.
I'm like, they're babies. I'm like, oh my god. It's like how the influence of like war and
Mm.
surviving is like it basically
They're
goes through the entire ship. Yeah.
and it may I don't know if you noticed, but the reason they're there wasn't because they were enlisted,
Hmm.
because like they're just like kids,
Yeah,
they're
they're like
under the age of
civilian
10.
kids. Like they're straight
Yeah,
up
because
civilians.
yeah, they have civilians in the ship
Hmm.
because they have to
Yeah.
evacuate a
Hmm.
space colony,
Yeah.
and immediately you're like, oh, this is actual war.
Yeah.
There's like normal people.
Hmm.
You don't know their names, but that's someone's grandma,
Hmm.
and she's asking for food rations.
Yeah. I'm
It's
like,
like,
oh yeah, they're going through war.
yeah, they don't
Hmm.
hide it.
Yeah.
Where like I think in most animes they kind of just underplayed the war.
Hmm.
This one's like, no, we're in war.
Yeah. I feel, I don't know about you, but I feel like in I want to say old school. I mean, this is
Mhm.
considered old school. I feel like in more old school slash old style animes now these days, it's like a lot of the themes that they highlight, whether dark or like,
Mhm.
whatever dark, comedic, like like light, like lightning or enlightening or anything like that. It becomes very
You
more
mean lightning
apparent.
or enlightening?
Enlightening. I'm sorry.
Okay, because then like said lightning, it was like what?
Yeah, no, yeah, enlightening, themes in general. Oh, themes
Yeah,
in general, right? I feel like themes in general for like for old school style animes, such as Gundam. Was that another one? Berserker, that's another one.
that
Like,
came out like in the I think the original manga came out around the 80s, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, but in such that their themes that they put out that they put out up front is becomes very more apparent, and it's much more obvious than the animes now these days. Like you
Hmm.
said, they underplay the theme of like of war, fighting, drama, like
Hmm.
whatever it may be. Like they underplay it as like I guess in anime of today versus anime back then.
They and you know what I think what it is, and this is specifically I'm going to like Gundam and all that
Yeah.
stuff,
Hmm.
is that most of the people that are working on it, so it miss you gotta think about how young they were and what time they were young.
Yeah.
They grew up around World War II era,
Hmm.
so they experienced war.
Yeah.
Whether or not they were in or they were around the area. It's
Around
kind
the
of like
uh-huh.
how in the original Godzilla film, the old Japanese one,
Yeah.
that was
Hmm.
an allegory for nuclear weaponry
World War
and
Two. Yeah.
nuclear disaster
Uh huh.
because of Hiroshima and Nagasaki,
Yeah.
and like this Godzilla is supposed to be this their not symbolism but like analogy to the atom bomb, this destructive
That makes
force,
that makes a lot of sense. That makes a
yeah,
lot of sense. Yeah.
this is destructive force of nature
Hmm.
that caused because of human hubris, and it caused the death and destruction. Like going back and watch that old movie in like the original Japanese, language.
Hmm.
The English one was all right, but it was still pretty good. But the
Yeah.
original Japanese one really emphasized the whole like surviving the bombings.
Hmm.
Like you'd see people. There's a lot of people hurt and and bloody and stuff. There's like
Yeah.
moment of like kids singing in a choir and going like,
Hmm.
oh, like because like people have died, so like
Yeah.
they're like,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
oh, kind of stuff, and
Hmm.
it really sends the weight down. And you that's because they got the idea from the World War II and all that stuff, and that's
Yeah.
how and it affected their media for a while.
Hmm.
Same thing with Gundam.
Yeah.
This came out 79, where a lot of people working on it still had World War II in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
For sure.
and this is gonna think of that as we continue to if you continue to watch that
Yeah, for
and
sure.
stuff like that.
I
Anything
think
else you want to talk about? I'll let you finish.
a little side tangent before we move on.
Yeah.
Another good. I heard this was a great movie. Just because animation one was fantastic, and also storyline was also on top of it.
Hmm.
Was again related to the whole World War II, post World War II post World War II scene was a Grave of the Fireflies.
So
Another.
interesting note.
Yeah.
They changed that story from because it was originally a book.
I figured they would change as much because this
But
was
here's the
basically
thing, and
about.
it kind of pisses
Yeah.
me off at the same
Hmm.
time. It's kind of like an autobiography of the boy who lost his sister and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But they ended up killing the character, him in the movie.
Hmm.
When in reality he's still alive.
Oh, so what they killed what in the anime they killed him,
Yeah.
but the sister survives.
No, no, no. They both die
Oh, they
in the
both
anime.
die, but in real
In
life,
real life,
it's the boy survives.
yeah,
Uh, well, shit.
yeah. Well, don't get me wrong. For what they were going with makes sense. But
Yeah,
when you think of that, it's like
it's
I don't
like
know. I think that's a little more sadder.
it's like really, huh?
It's like one of those things where, like it's a little more sadder when you realize, oh, he's still alive. He survived.
Mm.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
good connection by the way. But any
Yeah.
other things you want to talk about before we move on?
In terms of Gundam, let's see. No, I think we're ready to move on.
Yeah, because that's the one thing that. Okay, let me ask you this:
Yeah.
how different did you expect it to be? Like after watching the origin, did you think it was gonna keep going that way, or were you surprised by how
I honestly
starkly
was
different came?
yeah. I honestly was expecting like the series to continue in terms of like some like again again the thought when again going into this you told me to only take a small percentage of what you remember from Origin, the rest of it out the window, and I had the mindset of like, okay, I'm expecting maybe a few things that I remember from Origin to go into this, and then completely 360 altogether, because what I saw in the first three episodes is like, okay, this is clearly going to be a obviously, yes, it is the Zeons versus the Federation.
Hmm.
That's the big picture, but the specific let's see, but the specific struggle slash conflict that you're really gonna see is gonna be between both Shar and uh
Amuro?
Amuro. Yes, I
Hmm.
don't know why I can't remember his name. Amuro and Shar. The specific conflict that I saw between the three episodes so far is definitely going to be between Shar and Amuro, and I feel like as I may continue the series, it's going to continue even more further. Like there's going to be even more of a
So
conflict between them.
I'll I'll let you know this whenever because I've seen this series before
Hmm.
Origin because so Origin was made later.
Yeah.
It was made as a manga as like sort of a retelling of the origin of this series
Hmm.
with a little more extra stuff, which is
Yeah.
why I compared Gundam the Origin to the prequels of Star Wars,
Hmm.
and this being like the original trilogy.
Yeah.
That's why I was telling you like how in the original trilogy they talk about the Clone Wars, but you never really knew the Clone Wars until like later in life.
Until you saw the prequels.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
So, um, that's why I told you that. And again, I said it's a little bit of an exaggeration to say throw everything new from the origin out the window, but
Hmm.
there's still stuff in there that relate to the origin because that was the whole point, was to expand on the
Yeah.
story.
Hmm.
Um, I'll say this from my perspective: it's origin was the reason we got into the war. Explain
Hmm.
the reason we got into it. This series goes into the war, like not just from the
Okay.
perspectives of
That
like,
makes sense.
yeah, because like not just like in most animes, um,
Hmm.
when it comes to like war themes, you'll see like some main character being like, "I will get back at the person in charge," kind of stuff. Here, it's more like I am just a soldier.
Yeah.
I may have main character things, but I am still just a soldier,
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Because like, have we continued to the origin, we would have jumped back and forth between like all the zombies and all these different
Hmm.
people's names that you had
Yeah.
remember, you had problems remember. No, we stick to this one thing, and it's clearly a war. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So do you have
I
any?
will say yeah.
No,
No,
I'll let
yeah.
you finish. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. I figure you're gonna ask me if I had anything to add, specifically to like kind of like understanding the war going on between both the Xeon
Well,
and the
do
Federation.
you have any questions about that? I can happily answer.
It's
Hopefully
more
not
of
in a
like
spoiler way.
yeah, it's more of like a kind of like a you know from the character standpoint, it's like I feel like with Origin there was a lot. I feel like for Origin, like you said, they did focus on the war, but although they did focus on the war, but for sure it was more concentrated towards the characters themselves. Like and essentially in Origins, there's different characters. Artesia, Artesia, Char, um, the zombies, the Daikuns. I feel like there was more concentration towards the characters than the war itself. Although yes, the war was the whole pretense of the show, but for
That's what
sure,
I'm saying. It leads up to the war.
yeah, that leads up to the war. Yeah,
Yeah, like
but
this
with
is.
yeah, but with the original story, I feel like yes, we are introduced to characters, but now going further deeper into the war, like
Mhm,
like the actual battles, the actual
mhm,
everything you see basically on the front lines kind of deal that
mhm,
that you may have not have seen in um in Origin. So
mhm.
yeah. So
Exactly.
I feel like for me that was like a that was a key difference for me, and that's what I was able to take from it to where
Mhm.
I can separate it out. Okay, Gundam Origin is, yes, it is a retelling of the original story, but in its own it is in its
Expanding on
own
some of the lore.
exactly. I feel like the original would definitely expand more on the actual 1 year war itself rather than
Hmm.
Origin. The Origin
Yeah,
kind of maybe
yeah.
scratches the
There's a
surface.
reason
Yeah.
why, if you think about it in terms of
Hmm.
the story, why
Yeah.
our main character perspective, our protagonist switches, because
Hmm.
in the origin, it's Char is our main character,
Yeah.
really, for the most part. We see it from his perspective, and then we start seeing it from different people's perspective as
Hmm.
the origin goes along, because it's sort of building up to the war and stuff that would eventually lead to the creation of the Gundam, and
Hmm.
then eventually we end to where it starts from the first
Yeah.
episode.
Hmm.
And when we get into the original series, it's more, we switch perspective from Char, who is like this noble character who the people respect, was actually this character who's out for revenge.
Hmm.
We switch to a kid
Yeah.
who is now have to enlist to a war that he never signed up for. And this is one of that kind of story where really, and you see him having this sort of issues, especially in the beginning of the episode, in the first couple episodes. Like,
Hmm.
he doesn't like the idea of someone giving him orders.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't sign up for this war. I don't want to follow your orders. I'm not a soldier.
Yeah. And then
But the guy's like
his CEO was
commanding
it
officer.
yeah, his CEO
Right.
Bright was like, well, this is war, kid, too bad, suck it up, or get out, pretty much.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't
And
he like yeah, Bright was pretty much like he's like the typical like commanding, you
mhm,
get that commanding officer, like vibe of like, oh hey, you don't like war, or you don't like to kill. Well, I mean, suck it up. This is war. You're gonna either deal
Like
with
there's
it.
no way out of it.
Yeah, it's like once you're in, it's either you're in all the way or you're not. You know.
Kid, you're the only one who can pilot this. I need you out there.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
like
give a
get
fuck.
it's like get on board or I'll find someone else. Kind of
Yeah.
deal. Mhm.
And you kind of at the same time you get why he's like that
Mhm.
because like I said earlier, he Amro's the only one who can pilot it.
Yeah.
Like he took the time to read the instruction manual. He's been pretty okay with it, and we need to get out. Kid, you're the only one who can do it. Suck it up.
Yeah.
And like even Bright himself
Mhm.
is still pretty young.
Yeah.
He's 19.
He looks young too. I was just gonna say he does not look like a like a
Dude, yeah,
decorated like general or whatever. He still looks
no,
like a lieutenant or something like
yeah,
that.
I think he was commander at least.
Something like that. Yeah.
So and like because the general or whatever, whoever's in charge, who's supposed to be in charge, he got injured, and that's why you see that guy in the bed. That's the general.
Yeah.
He's the one. Then like he's too injured to talk, so all the
hmm
responsibility goes to this kid who barely just enlisted, who not barely just enlisted, but who's only been here, who probably just got out of basic training. If
Yeah.
you think about it,
hmm
probably. And I'll tell you this right now, Bright's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
He's there's gonna be a moment. I'm gonna tell you this right now, Kevin. If you so choose to continue, there's gonna be a moment where you're gonna be like, Bright,
yeah.
thank you for that, Bright. I love
Yeah.
you for like
hmm
he's still a character and he'll call on somebody's shit. But
hmm
no, yeah, it's all that kind of stuff. Amuro has to eventually put up with the idea of him being a soldier, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be like the overarching story throughout this series.
I
I'll tell
figured.
you that
Yeah.
now.
hmm
Any other thing you want? Any questions or anything you want to discuss with me?
Uh, none that I have so far. Like
Hmm.
I feel like I'd probably have more questions. Like if I so choose to
Hmm.
continue with the series. Um, yeah.
All right, let me ask you this: were you glad that I showed you the origin first, or would you prefer to start off from here?
I'm actually glad you showed me the origin first because I feel like if you showed me the original and then origin after, I'd be totally lost and I'm like, okay, wait, who's this again? Like I'd be confused as to like, you know, kind of like, you know, like understanding like the whole 1 year war, the complex between the whole complex between both the Zeons and the Federate and the Earth Federation.
Mhm.
Um, you know, so I feel like Origin was definitely, watching Origin first was definitely a good start for me. Which I'm glad you talked. I'm glad you talked me into it and the knowing, okay, like this is a good base, and then watching the actual original series, that it makes more sense.
Hmm.
So
It's and
yeah.
the reason I went with it is because in remembering the original
Oh,
series, they just kind of drop you in the middle of everything. You just kind of have to you have to learn as you go.
I felt like if I were to watch the original first, I felt like it would like yeah I felt like if I watched the original first, then I felt like it would have been more of a like a sink or swim. It's like you either sink or you swim. You're trying to stay afloat of trying to
Hmm.
absorb all this information that's being thrown at you or that's being placed in front of you all at once, rather than just like really understanding from the breakdown of
Yeah,
said
I mean,
series.
there's a reason why each episode starts off with the introduction that we humans have transitioned, I went to space,
Yeah, it's the
um,
same
where,
opening.
where we grow, live, and die, and
hmm
you're thrown into there's a war going on. Apparently, 50% of each side's population went out.
Yeah,
Okay, what? Why are they going to war? Why are they going to
yeah,
war?
uh
And
huh.
don't get me wrong, they explain it um, as they go along, but I feel like the attention span for probably more um, you know modern day anime fans would probably not be willing to go through.
hmm
I
Yeah,
don't know. Do you agree with that statement?
I feel like watching an old school anime now, like this is probably the first old school anime that I've watched in a while, because the recent ones,
Hmm.
the from my memory that I can recount, the old school animes I watched growing up was, again, it was Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon,
Pokemon. stuff that we were
Inuyasha.
introduced to
y-
stuff we were
Exactly.
introduced to in the '90s.
Exactly, as a kid. Yu Yu Hakusho, it's like, you understood it then, and then versus like, the current, like, I feel like the current like fan base of anime fans, the current fan base of fans now, if they were to watch like, any of the old school animes, they would, I'd say this, just like just like Amuro, just like the character Amuro would have like probably zero to little patience of like
Mhm.
really getting into the story of, or
Yeah,
really understanding. So I
and
feel like I feel like getting or watching a show such as this, you really have to have a level of patience to
mhm.
really understand and to grasp and to absorb what's going on, kind of deal.
The 3 episode rule does not work here.
Hmm.
Like even I admit that
Yeah,
because I could tell even you were like, when is this picking up?
yeah.
Like and don't get me wrong, it's just it's still a good show,
Hmm.
but it does not have the if you do not have the patience for it, and I think in current animes, you know, the way they work it, and if they don't catch you by like the first to 3 episodes, they're
Yeah,
not they don't catch
exactly.
you.
Hmm.
And here it's like this is what's happening. You're gonna learn as you go. Stop
Yeah.
complaining. I'm not turning the car around. No, but
Yeah.
would you continue?
I'd say yeah. I'd say I'd continue the series.
Mhm.
You know, it is of course like 43 episodes long, but still
And I'll get
it.
into why too.
Yeah. But yeah, this will definitely be a series that I'd want to continue for sure.
Hmm.
Just because I really want to know about more of like the whole, I'd really want to find out more about the eventual conflict that is, I mean, not the eventual conflict, the everestly continuing growing
Hmm.
conflict that is between Amuro and Char for sure. Because I feel
Hmm.
like, again, the
They've been fighting for 3 episodes.
yeah, like straight up, like 3 episodes straight. It's almost like, it's almost like it's almost kind of like the arc between the arc between, oh yeah, Goku and Frieza fighting for an extraneous amount of episodes, and it takes
Yeah,
this many episodes for Goku to go Saiyan. It takes this many episodes for Goku to go, to finally kadoosh with the spirit bomb, and it's but yeah, I feel like
thankfully, I will say this:
hopefully
there is
that,
breaks between.
okay, yeah, I was gonna say hopefully there is like breaks, and there's not like just an extraneous amount of episodes just for the
Hmm.
fighting between two characters, or like a a character that's holding a massive power move for the next
Thankfully, there isn't.
3 episodes or something like that, like Goku
Yeah,
is with his freaking spirit bomb. So
yeah.
but although that may be the
Hmm.
case, I'm so glad I made that comparison, and I remember that so well. I still want to continue for sure.
I will
I
say
definitely would
this,
still want to
and
continue for, yeah,
I will say
the
this:
series.
the reason why you see Char and Amuro go at it every for the past 3 episodes
Yeah,
is because this is it's a chase
yeah,
right now. They're
hmm,
chasing their, and it's gonna be it's gonna be more of a chase as it goes along.
I figured, yeah,
So it only makes sense that these two have to continuously fight each other.
hmm,
Heck,
yeah,
in the last episode, episode 3, Char they just happened to find Char and they were like, okay, are we gonna fight him? Yes or no? Everyone go to a vote. Okay,
we're
vote.
gonna
We're
we're
gonna
gonna
fight him.
we're gonna fight him.
Yeah, and because Char was resupplying, was getting some resupplies,
Yeah,
so he was like getting some new suits or a little detail that probably like you went over your head. Spare stuff because
yeah,
they're running low on stuff.
oh yeah, hmm,
Yeah, they're running low on
oh yeah. I think
prime
they were.
robots.
I think they were running low on ammunition,
Hmm.
parts.
Even
Wait,
the
wait,
person who has to provide them all that stuff says, "Yeah, we're still low,"
yeah.
which already gives that sort of war feel.
It's funny that I think we talked about this even like towards the end of episode 3 yesterday. It's like, it's funny how like in you're thinking in a mech suit, you're thinking, oh, you have unlimited. No, we made this comparison yesterday. We made this comparison to like imagine if like the Megazord in like the Megazords in Power Rangers, it's like they never run out. They never run out of ammunition or yeah or
Weapon.
they never run out of ammunitions or just weapons because it's magic based and it's just
So
unlimited.
so
It's like
let me explain. First, let me explain why why Gundam is sort of important to the mech
yeah.
genre,
Uh-huh.
and I'll explain why it only had 43 episodes.
Hmm.
I'll start off with the first. Um, if you go back to the history of mecha, which starts off with Tetsujin 28, Gigantor,
Hmm.
you know, Gigantor, an old black and white anime. It was always like they never really explained how it worked. All you knew that it was like controlled by a little kid with his little remote
Yeah.
out in the distance where he was doing all this and that. And later we got stuff like Manzinger Z, which is sort of I compare it to Power Rangers with their Megazords
It's funny.
because
It's funny that you mentioned Mazinger Z because Mazinger Z was actually a mech that was in that later inspired one of the Super Sentai series.
mhm,
Um, was it I forgot which series it was. Let's see, Mazinger. You said Mazinger 5, right, or something like that.
Z.
Oh, a Z. Okay. Well, what? Yeah, that particular mech inspired. I think that inspired. Like, I think one of the Super Sentai series. I think it was. Oh yeah, 5 Man, which basically their mech looks exactly like
Mhm.
Mazinger. Looks
Yeah,
exactly like
and see,
Mazinger. Yeah.
that's what I mean because like in Manzinger Z, it's sort of kind of they don't really explain how everything works.
Yeah.
All you kind of know that it's kind of magic, and
Yeah.
everything about the robot is super over the top and silly,
It's like
and
mystical, magic based.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the designs are so very like goofy and childish.
Yeah.
Like that's why I compared it to a Megazord because that's like the first thing
Yeah. Yeah. It
I
make
could see
it make it
because
like
like
yeah.
well with Gundam it's introduced the idea of the real robot and made you good.
No, yeah.
Are we showing off our mechs?
The Megazord, just like imagine. Okay, imagine all these like things, all these swords coming
He's got
together.
by the way for our audio listeners he's got the OG Mighty Morphin Power Rangers one.
I also have the Dragon Sword as well, but yeah.
Uh-huh.
But like essentially, like as Eli is mentioning, it's so like as a kid, it's like we all saw this as like the
I'm bringing mine out.
we all imagine this as like all these Zords or all these pieces of a Zord comes together, they form up, and then basically multiple Zords become one, right? And then their weapons even it's like they appear out of nowhere. It's like it's like they call upon the power of whatever weapon, and out comes a magical item, out comes a magical or mystic item. Boom! It's right there. It's right in front of you. It's like you never expect. Like in obviously in real life that doesn't happen, but like just or even in the show, it's like like I'm pretty sure in the Gundam series where I don't know if like future Gundam series Eli actually like they call upon like weapons and all of a sudden boom the weapons in front of you. But I know for Power Rangers that was basically what it is. It's like they call upon it and then boom here's the
Oh,
weapon.
there is one. There is one. The OG one. When I
Okay,
introduce you to that, Kelvin, you're gonna love it. You're
so
gonna love
so
all
yeah
the top.
yeah so essentially
So
it's like comparing Gundam to like Power Rangers like mech in terms of like the mechas wise like it's funny about the whole like the idea of having a weapon that's based in the mystic arts or in sorcery or magic just appear out of nowhere out of thin air and all of a
yeah,
sudden
and that's what I mean. Like that's sort of the that's how it was for mech animes back then. And so Gundam came in, and then we introduced the whole idea of like Gundams, like robots being more of just weapons of war.
I'm leaving
They,
this here for the
they
rest of the episode.
yeah, I can't do that with mine. That's what I got to do. I'm going to bring out all a good four of them.
Yeah.
But essentially, like the Gundam runs out of ammunition. He has to go back and resupply.
Yeah.
He can get hurt. They don't immediately send stuff at him.
Hmm.
By the way, I have the original Gundam Verka, which
Nice.
is
Nice.
my first one actually. If we're talking about it, so if you
Hmm.
just type in Gundam Verka, which means version Katoki Hajime. who's like a very well-known mechanical designer. I have the real grade Wing Gundam Zero Endless Walsh version, which pretty much everyone always loves because of the angel wings.
Mm-hmm.
It's I mean it's this is very everyone loves it because of
Yeah.
the wings. The big boy, my big beefy boy, the Shar's Zazabi. You won't see that until way later,
Yeah.
and he's a big boy. This one cost me like around 800, not 800, $80. Took me 3 weeks to build.
Hmm.
Yep. And then my all-time favorite design, the new Gundam, and not new as in NEWE. It's NU because it's the Greek letter new.
Mm.
My all-time favorite. It's when you see it on the screen, Kelvin, you'll be like, yeah, I can see why that's Eli's favorite.
Yeah.
No, essentially that's the idea of the Gundam and why it became so synonymous and among the mech community, the mech genre. It was the
Yeah.
first time they were actually treated like robots,
Mm-hmm.
not just robots, but like weapons of war.
Yeah.
Like the amount of death going on, the fact that hey, this is a walking tank, and tanks run out of
Ammo. They ran out of
ammo.
ammunition. Yeah.
What are we gonna do?
Yep.
You have to go back and resupply.
Mm-hmm.
That was so strange, and that's when it really introduced the idea of real robots, and that's when like you start getting all these different kind of series that sort of follow that kind of trend
Mm-hmm.
of what Gundam said. Now, I say that ironically enough, Gundam was canceled.
Yeah. I was actually asking Eli about this. It's like, say, oh, okay, is there a second season? And you're like, no, that's it. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, it's like, like I saw like, 1 through 43, and then that's it. Like there's no season 2, there's no like, post, there's no
There's a
OVAs.
sequel, but there's no season two
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because this is around the time when some animes went to like almost like 50 episodes, so even more than that.
Yeah.
So originally it had a 50 episode run, but the reason it got canceled was due to the fact that it did not get enough ratings.
Which is very surprising. It's like, because I'm pretty sure Gundam itself, Mobile Suit Gundam in itself was, probably in a critically acclaimed like, series to a
Mhm.
point to where like, a lot like, people like you or like, people like you or people like anyone else who are a huge fan of
I
Gundams, like,
mean,
they
you're
love the series so
surprised
much.
because they have a statue in Japan, and one where that and another statue they're making right now so that it can walk.
Only in Japan.
Only in Japan, which
Only in Japan.
only in Japan. I mean, when I get there, I'm gonna be like, tear coming down my eye. No,
Yeah,
but
no,
the
yeah,
reason for it,
I know exactly what you're talking about. The one that the one right in the square of Tokyo,
uh,
the one that
yeah,
the one that lights up has smoke come out of it, and I
the
think
unicorn, another one I have up there, but
oh
I
no,
can't
yeah,
say for it.
I think they were constructing that one too. Yeah, it was the unicorn, I believe.
Yeah, it was a unicorn Gundam, one of my favorite, probably like my second or third best favorite one in terms of
Hmm.
design. Um, they're redoing the original one, so like this one,
Yeah,
in Bed to Walk. But essentially, you hear me say that, you hear us talking about that, and you're wondering, well, how did it get canceled? The fact is, you also have to remember, like I said earlier, most mech animes were these super powered Megazord level stuff. And Kelvin, even Power Rangers and all that Megazord stuff, that's for kids.
it's meant for kids.
Yeah,
Yeah, and what really sucks about specifically about the Power Rangers fandom is like whenever the
mm-hmm.
show is being made and whenever the show is being made, the story
They
is being
wanted a little
developed,
more mature.
they want a little bit more maturity, and then like at the end of the day, it's like you guys got to remember, this is
This
a
is for
show
kids.
that's it's geared towards kids. It's meant to be geared towards kids. Yes, for the older fans, this was kind of like a little
Mm-hmm.
reminiscent of our childhood, of our childhood memories. But again, at the end of the day, this show is geared towards kids, and it's like,
Yeah.
if you were, oh shoot, if you were
Yeah.
to put in adult or dark themes, I mean, if you want to go adult or dark themes, you want to go maybe Lost Galaxy, Time Force, Lightspeed Rescue, then yeah,
But
that's
even then, because you're
but
talking
even
to a guy
then
who loves,
but even then it's
I
like,
love Lost Galaxy.
yeah,
Even
but
then, that's
even
still for kids.
Yeah, but even then, it's like the moments that they actually show dark themes in the show is
Hmm.
only like maybe it'll only last about maybe
Hmm.
at best, if you're lucky, depending on the series, it'll get maybe 2 episodes, possibly 3. It's like at most maybe 2, and that's about it. Or maybe
Hmm.
like an arc, that's about it. But the rest of the show, it is, a it is geared towards a kid friendly
Hmm.
audience, because that at the end of
Yeah,
the day, that's what it's meant for.
and
It's
that was the issue that Gundam had.
uh-huh.
It never really caught on to kids. And you watching the show now,
Yeah.
can you see a kid getting into this?
Probably not. Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so that's what really killed it, because at the time a lot of the shows were made, a lot of make shows were made for kids. That was the
Surprisingly,
stigma
yeah,
that they had.
surprisingly enough though, um with Power Rangers and their predecessor Super Sentai, because again, it was the original predecessor to Power Rangers, and like most of their
Hmm.
scenes are made in Japan and stuff, right? But
Hmm.
aside from that, Su- Super Sentai was not afraid to dive into the dark themes that was,
Yeah,
that happened in the show. Like there's a and at least all of the seasons has one episode where one of the Rangers actually dies. In
yeah,
Power Rangers, only one known Ranger actually dies, and it was
and they
Galaxy
from off
Pink.
Galaxy. Yeah,
Yeah, only she dies.
and yeah, but they
but
didn't
but
bring her
but
back.
yeah, and then and I guess she had a successor. Yeah, she had a successor. But in Super Sentai, at least one Ranger in each of the series, from my understanding, has
Hmm.
that has died
Yeah,
in the actual series.
and but that's where I get to my point. It
Hmm.
wasn't that wasn't the norm. That was a stigma that mech animes had at the time,
Yeah.
and so since it didn't catch on to kids, it never really got the ratings it deserved. Also, some say
Right.
that the time slot they were given wasn't good enough too, because again, no one really cares about
Hmm.
mech animes because that's geared for kids.
Yeah.
Funny, I'm a grown guy. I'm a dude who likes to build a model kit, so that's that. But
Yep.
heck, even when it was originally created, if you go back into like the the history of how it got created, it
Hmm.
was originally gonna, in order for it to get made, they marketed it as a show for kids,
Hmm.
where it was originally titled Freedom Fighter Gunboy.
Mm.
So that was like the original title for Gundam. They just took a couple words and made a Gundam out of it.
Freedom
But
Fighter Gunboy. Interesting.
yeah, that's which is a very not 70s,
I
60s
know.
kind of anime, like Freedom Fighter Gunboy.
Freedom of Fighter Gunboy. Like,
Yeah.
and also Game Boy. Game
It
Boy.
reminds you of the Game Boy, but no. But they ended up going through like a lot of darker themes,
Uh huh.
of because it's a war, you
Yeah.
know. Unless kids aren't probably gonna get that into it. That's why a
Hmm.
lot of, especially if you since we're saying continue, there's gonna be a lot of goofy looking mechs,
Mm.
especially, and it becomes a lot more of monster of the week, more like robot of the week kind of fight thing going on.
Yeah.
And you're gonna see that
Hmm.
as we go along, because that was the only way for them to continue the series as far as
Yeah.
they could. Now, tying it back to the compilation movies,
Hmm.
that only happened because of dedicated fans
Yeah.
and the company switching toy manufacturers. They were, I think, they were used by a toy manufacturer called Clover,
Hmm.
but now they went to Bandai,
Yeah.
which is why they,
And the part and speaking of Bandai, the partnership with with Hasbro, it's like, well, pretty much like that pretty much sealed the deal on like whether the big question, side note, the big question now is Power
oh,
Rangers
don't
going
worry,
to
I'll get rid of it.
yeah, is Power Rangers going to continue now that Hasbro and Bandai has officially
Hmm.
xed out their partnerships? And I'm like, okay, Hasbro, like let's see what you do next. I mean, I
I
know
mean, they
you've
make
had
Transformers. They can make the Power Rangers
I
toys.
mean, I know you've had your successes with Transformers, My Little Pony, GI Joe. I know, I get that, but it's like with Power Rangers. I mean, it's all about the toys at the end of the day. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, part of it, yeah, is like how many people view in to actually watch the show.
Hmm.
Yes, but the
And
other,
and to
yeah,
tie it back, there was the popularity of reruns and the dedicated fan base
mm-hmm,
and the popularization of the model kits.
Yeah.
which is why it's so tied into the series.
Mm-hmm.
The overall Gundam stuff is how it was able to be brought back and able to be made into a trilogy of films.
Yeah.
That's why like a lot of people that's why the argument for the original series and the films are a thing
Mm-hmm.
because the movies cut out the stuff that they try to do that to get the more of the kid audience.
Yeah.
So that's why it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it honestly looking at the history of the original series of Gundam, and we'll probably talk about this again when we come back to after watching all of this,
Mm-hmm.
just to see how much has was inspired because of this
Mm-hmm.
is really one of the reasons why I've become such a fan of this series and I've become so ingrained into it
Yeah.
because like later because like it just become a huge part of the culture. It's their Star Wars / Star Trek of Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and you can kind of see that why. Also, I made the joke about Star Wars stuff and throughout the when we were watching
Which ones?
when Amuro pulled off the viewer thing to make help him shoot.
Oh,
I was like, use the force, Amuro.
use the force, Amuro. Use the
Yeah.
force. Yeah,
So
yeah, I remember that.
yeah, and so I'm glad you want to continue. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good show, and you'll see why, and you can see why some of the limitations they have back. Actually, and like I said, just the making of it and the stuff that led onto it, and a lot of other stuff, specifically coming from the original creator, Yoshiyuki Tomino, is just very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'll talk about that when we come back to this.
Yeah.
But I think you already told me why you want to continue. You just want to see how this turns out.
I want to see how this turns out. I definitely want to again, like I love, and also for me, I love a good conflict story between, especially if
Mm-hmm.
it's just between two characters. Like it's just between them two. Maybe there's other factions involved, but it's just between them two, and it's nobody else. Like so we really get to focus more on that story. I'm excited to see how that conflict plays out. Between Armo and Char. So and then
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm intrigued to see how like the series will play out.
I'll let you know this, Kelvin.
Mhm.
They make a movie out of it.
I mean, yeah,
No, I'm not saying
you
like the
told me,
compilation movies. It all ends with a movie.
huh? Like the last episode.
Kind of more like it's been a couple of years. We've been doing this with Shar and Amuro for a couple of years. Let's just end it with a movie.
Hmm.
We'll call it Shar's Counterattack.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's why. I'm talking about this beefy boy. You won't see him until the movie,
Mm.
and he has a magnificent entrance.
Mm.
The same thing with the new Gundam. But
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you this: the the Gundam does not just stay with Char and Amuro. It
Yeah.
grows further from them at the same time.
Yeah.
Like they're a bit of your key characters, but as you go along, there's gonna be like a lot of other characters. I'm like, it becomes like JoJo at some point where like every new generation is also included.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Yeah.
that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think that's all we have to say, right?
Yeah. I think that pretty much wraps it up.
All right. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. I will say, after we're done with watching this, the next anime I recommend is not going to be Gundam. It's going to be something else. I'm
Mm.
going to give you a break from it
I figured as much.
because then I have to, because I'm going to. If I were to continue that, I don't even know if I would go with the actual sequel series or the three series that happen in between those two.
I'm
Because you
more,
have
I'm already confused. I'm
so
already.
this series, the original
Mhm.
series, then there's the sequel series that takes place like 7 years after, and yet there's like, let's see, there's the eighth MS team, Warren the Pocket, um, Thunderbolt, and Stardust Memory that all happen in between those two.
I think I think two of those series that you mentioned, two series that you mentioned so far, was it you said you said
Eighth
what was it
MS
called?
team, Stardust Memory.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
and
yeah,
Thunderbolt. I forgot about
yeah.
Thunderbolt.
Both. So I will say this: both MS eight MS team, and I think 8th MS Team, Blood Orphans, and Wing are all on Hulu. So
Yeah,
they're all on
Blood
Hulu.
Orphans is a separate series though. That's its own
Yeah.
universe. So we
Okay.
won't be touching that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like I said,
Gotcha.
one time, I could talk about Gundam in terms of a class
Mm-hmm.
because it's
Yeah.
mad deep. Yeah, dude. But no, honestly, if we were going to go to any of those stuff, because they're all basically OVAs. If we were
Yeah.
to go any one of those four OVAs, I'll probably go with the 8th MS team, and
Mm-hmm.
then War Pocket for you. Mostly because 8th MS team is basically Vietnam plus Romeo and Juliet plus Gundam.
Okay, now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I was like, that's gonna be Kelvin's favorite. He's gonna say,
I'm
he's gonna be
intrigued
watching this
now.
like they're basically fighting in Vietnam.
Wait, what? Eighth MS?
8th MS team,
Hmm. I'm
and we'll
intrigued
be
now.
done with that one quicker because it's 13 episodes.
Oh, I am real intrigued with that one now.
And I'll say this: it. I'll say that story takes place at the same time as this one, but
Mm-hmm.
it's from a different perspective, and it's also just a fight in Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna have a like in this series, you're gonna have a mix of space and Earth battles. That one's just like plain Earth,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like the Ragtag Squad
Yeah.
because it's a
Mm.
war movie. But you know,
Yeah.
it's loved by a lot of people. It's one of my favorite ones too.
Mm-hmm.
That's about all we can say about this episode. As you know, Kelvin is going to continue watching this. We will be back next time with this specific series. Well, I like to hear Kelvin's thoughts, and I would be very interested to see how he turns out with this, especially since like we're coming to another storm,
Yeah.
another reason
Essentially.
why we're getting stuck inside.
Yeah. Like storms. For those living in Houston, the storm's gonna like play out for our storm's gonna ride out for a while, and then I
Please be
think for the
safe.
next yeah, and yeah, and yeah, like what Eli said, be safe, guys. Stay inside unless you absolutely have to go out, but I don't think there should be any reason why you should be going out. Just stay inside. If you're
Please
if you are
don't swim in
traveling,
the water.
yeah, like you,
If it happens to fly, please don't do that.
yeah, and again, there's no reason to go out, and if you see water, turn around. Don't risk driving.
Don't get me
um
wrong. This is gonna make the episode very dated, but at the same time, there are very important lessons if you're from Houston.
yep.
All right, Kelvin, tell them where they can find us.
So we have our so easy. So I'm gonna say this right now. Easy way to access to all of our podcast links. So Castbox, Spotify, Castbox, Spotify, Pandora, Google Play, Apple Podcasts. Easy way to access it is if you go to our Instagram page. You click on the link on our Instagram page, link tree, and it'll have all of our links on there, so you can access all of our podcast streaming pages, as well as all of our the rest of our social media pages as well: Facebook, Twitter, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and hit and smash that like button. Subscribe to our channel. Drop that. Hit that bell notification to get notified on all of our episodes that we drop, and all of our new episodes and/or videos that we dropped, etc. And leave us a comment in either sections to let us know how we're doing, or let us know what topics you want to talk about, and of course support us on Patreon. Even if it's just like, I know, like, of course money is always, like, kind of like a tough talk, especially now these days, but even just a dollar a month will definitely help us out in the long run. So yeah, support us on there.
And that is it for the day. And it's been a fun one. And we'll try to see how things play along in the future. But
Mm-hmm.
we will still provide for you guys, and there's some great content. And no matter what storm, we'll still pull through.
Yeah.
All right. And it's been your boys.
Kelvin.
It's been your boy Eli. We are the Geek Centurions. You guys stay safe and have fun. Peace.
Bye bye.